A British company called Helix has quietly been building record-breaking electric motors for hypercars, and their new motor is the best one yet. It delivers 950 horsepower and is about the size of this plant pot. What makes this really interesting is that they use the most common and easiest to manufacture motor design, called a radial flux motor. Radial flux motors are generally larger and heavier, which means Helix engineers had to solve some very challenging problems to fit so much power in their system. Something I didn't expect when looking into this motor was just how secretive its design really was. So I went digging and I found this. It's the patent that describes their innovative cooling system, and it turns out the secret was right under our noses the whole time. So what is Helix's secret sauce? And can they really make the most common type of electric motor the most powerful too? I'm Ryan Inis, and this is a Zeroth Deep Dive. This investigation started when I met some of the senior Helix team at a conference, but all they would give me is their generic product leaflet. All they told me was that the reason they're able to get so much power out of their electric motors is down to their unique cooling system, but the company likes to keep it top secret. I thought that the person I was speaking to from Helix at the conference was exaggerating for effect, but as I looked into it, there really are no public articles or press releases that explain their novel cooling system. The closest is some comments from their CTO Andrew Cross in an interview, but it's not even half the story. However, after digging through every document I could find online, I think I finally got some answers. They explain how Helix have fit nearly 1,000 horsepower in a motor roughly the size of this plant pot, weighing just 28 kilograms, and it's called the SPX 177. We'll start with the cooling system, since I've hyped it up, but we'll also explore how the motor spins at 25,000 RPM and why it has 6 high voltage inputs rather than the usual 3. The cooling system of a standard electric motor flows a coolant around the casing to take heat away from it. The heat is generated when energy is wasted in the motor. This happens all over the motor, but mostly in the copper coils. For a permanent magnet motor, the copper coils are in the stationary stator and they create electromagnets. These electromagnets turn on and off in a rotating pattern to pull around the magnets in the spinning rotor. This standard electric motor design is called a radial flux motor because the magnetic flux flows along the radius between the magnets and the coils. The Helix motor is also a radial flux machine, which is interesting because most extremely power-dense electric motors are axial flux, known for their pancake-like design. When Helix said their cooling was innovative, I was interested what they meant because there's only so much you can deviate from the cooling around the casing that we saw earlier. I've seen other high-performance motors put an oil coolant directly on the copper coils too, but it wasn't until I dug up the patent that the innovation started to make sense. So remember I said that most of the heat generated in an electric motor is in the copper coils, and that is true, but it's also the easiest heat to remove. Heat is also generated in the spinning rotor, especially as the speed of the motor increases due to harmonics and circulating currents. Preventing the spinning rotor getting too hot is important because the rotor has permanent magnets on it, and if these permanent magnets get too hot, they stop working properly and it's game over for your whole motor, which is more likely to happen as you push a motor harder and harder as you try and get more power out of it. Some existing cooling systems do put some coolant through the middle of the rotor to help cool it, like this one from Audi. But the Helix cooling system puts a lot of extra effort into cooling the rotor, and it's where things get really interesting. The Helix motor goes far beyond just pumping coolant through the middle of the rotor. Instead, the main part of the spinning rotor is made from 2 tubes. The inner one has helical grooves machined onto its outer surface, like the thread of a screw. The outer sleeve is then put over the top and those grooves close into a sealed helical channel, spiraling down the full length of the rotor. The magnets are then bonded to the outside of that sleeve, meaning there's coolant spiraling directly underneath the magnets, separated only by the thickness of that outer sleeve's wall. Now, the simplest way to run coolant through the rotor down the spiraling coolant channels would just be to put it in one end and let it come out the other. But that would give you a problem because the coolant entering would be much cooler than the coolant coming out of it, meaning you get a temperature gradient where one side is much cooler than the other. So, to minimize the temperature difference, the coolant turns around at the end of the rotor and flows back along a different set of channels, slotting between the ones it came down. These helical cooling channels keep the coolant really close to the magnets, meaning that they can be kept really cool very effectively. At the start of this video, I said that the secret to their cooling was right under our noses the whole time, and that's because I think their new name, Helix, refers to this innovative helical cooling system. This isn't confirmed, but it would line up, because the company was actually founded in 1998 and used to be called Integral Powertrain Limited, but rebranded to Helix in 2022. The invention of their cooling system happened somewhere around the middle of those dates. However, all of this coolant flowing around the rotor leaves us with a new problem. The pump and radiator that move and cool the coolant are bolted stationary to the vehicle's chassis. The rotor, on the other hand, is doing tens of thousands of RPM. Therefore, the coolant has to cross that rotating boundary from chassis to rotor. If the motor can't get the coolant from the stationary pump and radiator over to the rotating rotor successfully, then the whole rotor cooling system becomes useless and the magnets could overheat. So let's see how they do this after a quick message from today's sponsor Roborock and the incredible engineering behind their new robot vacuum cleaner's navigation system. Most robot vacuum cleaners using traditional LiDAR navigation rely on rotating laser scanners that measure the environment along a horizontal plane. By continuously scanning the room, it can localize itself and build a detailed 2D map of walls, furniture, and other objects. The limitation is that it can only capture one slice of a 3D environment. It can sense an object is there, but it has limited information about its shape, height, or structure. Irregular objects, or those that sit above or below that sensing line, therefore can require additional sensors to accurately perceive, and it's an engineering challenge the industry has been chasing. Ensuring the robot perceives its surroundings in 3 dimensions, not just a simplified 2D cross-section. The Roborock Saros 20 tackles this using its StarSight navigation system 2.0. Instead of a spinning LiDAR turret on top of the robot, it uses a solid-state 3D time-of-flight sensor built into the front of the chassis, allowing the robot to sit low enough to get under furniture a turret-based robot couldn't reach. It fires infrared pulses 38,400 times a second and times how long they take to bounce back, and it uses that to build a 3D point cloud of the surroundings. The Saros 20 combines that depth data with an RGB camera with image recognition, allowing it to classify obstacles rather than just detect them and adjust its cleaning behavior accordingly. Carpets are also an engineering challenge due to their height and texture. So the Saros 20 detects this and adjusts its chassis height accordingly. So if you want this engineering in your home, then make sure to check out the link in the description or scan the on-screen QR code. Okay, now back to how the coolant gets in and out of the spinning rotor. Now, a lot of this has been left to trade secrets, but from what I could find, the key innovation is that the rotor has 2 shafts coming off of it with different diameters. Coolant flows in through the smaller diameter inner shaft, straight into the center before being fed out into the spiraling cooling channels. Once the coolant has completed the loop down and back up the rotor, It exits through a port on a larger diameter outer shaft, where it can then go to the static radiator to be cooled. This type of mechanism is called a coaxial rotary union. All of the videos I could find show the more common multi-passage rotary union instead, where the inlet and outlet are both offset from the center, rather than sharing the same central point. But the working principles are very related. It's really impressive to me how Helix have managed to make this new rotor cooling system work, considering how fast the new rotor in their high-performance machine is spinning. And I'm guessing it requires some pretty new and unique, maybe expensive materials. This super high-performance electric motor comes from Helix's X division, which is not their new boy band, but instead their skunkworks style team that are really pushing electric motors and engineering to its limits. The Helix motor will of course be working very hard to keep the whole motor cool under extreme loads, but by putting extra effort in to keep the rotor cool too, they'll get some important benefits. The big one is that they can keep the motor running at high power consistently without worrying that the magnets will overheat and demagnetize, which at best would reduce the motor's torque because there's less magnetic flux, but at worst the magnets could completely demagnetize and then the whole rotor of the motor is pretty screwed. In fact, they care so much about the magnets' temperatures, they even model them whilst the motor is running to ensure they don't get too hot. This type of real-time thermal modeling of magnets is pretty much exactly what my PhD was on, so it's really cool to be seeing it in operation here. Another benefit of their rotor cooling for the less performance critical motors from Helix is that they could use alternative magnet materials that are more sensitive to heat. These alternative magnet materials, whilst not being as resistant to heat, offer a bunch of other benefits like not being dependent on a global supply chain monopoly. As well as the seals for the coolant, another thing that needs special consideration at high speeds is keeping the magnets where you want them. As a motor spins faster and faster, the magnets on the rotor want to fly outwards. So if they're not properly contained, the magnets will become high-speed projectiles with the ability to implode an electric motor in less than a second. So it's safe to say engineers care a lot about strapping these magnets in securely. To achieve this, Helix appear to use an increasingly common industry practice of putting the rotor magnets inside carbon fiber, either by wrapping it or using a carbon fiber sleeve. This provides a secure hold as the motor spins at 25,000 RPM. But there's one last thing about this motor that I couldn't stop looking at. It has 6 high voltage inputs. This is weird because in almost any other motor you would come across in an EV, for example, it would have 3 inputs. And here's a quick refresher on why. In a typical 3-phase machine, the current in each phase is cycled between high and low in such a way that it creates a rotating magnetic field, using the electromagnets in the stator. This rotating field is what pulls around the magnets in the rotor, creating torque. Now, there's a whole world of 6-phase and 9-phase electric motors that I want to get into properly in a different video, but it's enough to say here that Helix have put 2 sets of 3-phase windings slightly offset from each other inside the motor. This means the motor is essentially a 6-phase motor, but they're actually using 2 3-phase inverters to power it, which share the current demands between them. Sharing the current across more phases is important here because to get really high power and stay within normal-ish voltage ranges, the current has to get pushed really high. This high current pushes up heat generation, which is obviously what we're trying to avoid here. An added bonus is that if one inverter or a set of 3-phase coils in the motor fails, you have a backup, which is useful for cars, but critical for anything that takes to the skies. Therefore, their 6-phase design means more power with less heat and added redundancy if things go wrong. We're still yet to find out where this insane electric motor called the SPX 177 is going to be used, apart from the fact it's a hypercar. Though Helix are definitely well placed to deliver this, given where their motors have been used in the past. This includes the Aston Martin Valkyrie and the legendary McMurtry Spearling. As you're still watching, please consider subscribing. It's free and helps the channel a lot. You might also like some of our other videos, like this one on how batteries are getting insanely cheap. And as always, thanks for watching.